He has had a long history of public service in his family, and he executed that public service through a long career.
That said, I love the stories about how this is a guy who, you know, they basically had to make him go to Yale because he wanted to enlist in the military. They had to, you know, he turned down the Brown brothers partnership, what would have led to a partnership clearly, to go down to Texas. And as I read it today, he didn't go down there to, you know, any great shakes job. He began sweeping warehouses and painting machinery before becoming a salesman of drilling bits. That's extraordinary.
Well, he had a very, in addition to his intelligence, he had a very humble approach to doing something with his life.
Yeah, it was humble, and he certainly had no qualms about starting out that way. Still, look at the places he rose to and didn't lose a sense of himself. What does that tell you about him?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What does it tell you about him that he rose to such high stature but didn't lose that essence?
Well, he never lost his common touch, and no matter how busy he was, he always had time for people, and he was a man of high integrity and high regard for the public service.
Former Vice President Al Gore there, as we see more coming into the National Cathedral. Capacity, by the way, about 3,000 people, I understand. And with five of the five former presidents in attendance today, Kelly, it's about 10% of those who have ever been president in our country.
That's a great point. And, you know, to have a gathering like that, world leaders as well. We saw Joe Biden speaking with Brian Mulroney, the former Canadian premier, who, of course, will be giving a eulogy and talking about the time. You know, as I understand it, it was H.W. Bush who brought Canada into what was supposed to be a U.S.-Mexico trade agreement, clearing the stage for what became NAFTA. Now, of course, very contentious, replaced by the recent agreement to replace it with the USMCA. Bill, just reflecting on some of the things that were set up during the H.W. Bush term. You know, look, he also did the 4 consecutive quarters of 4% GDP growth that John reminded us of. What do you think he'll be most remembered for?
I'm sorry, say again.
Sure, Bill, what do you think will stand out most about those 4 years as it relates to the economy and how well it did, even though he went out amid such controversy about its performance?
Well, I think the thing that will be a lasting remembrance of GHW is his internal and constant kindness, attention to people who work with him and for him. He had a great record in international affairs, but above all, he was and will always be remembered as a outstanding and very intelligent president. And I think we all feel that we're pretty lucky to have had him as President of the United States.
Bill, I wonder what you think the legacy bottom line is when it comes to the president and, say, regulation, because we had the Americans with Disabilities Act, revised the Clean Air Act, actually extended jobless benefits is the reason you get 26 weeks of jobless benefits now, but had some other, wanted to refine, say, the Civil Rights Act of 1990, but much different take than, say, Reagan had, right?
Well, I think that Bush was, above all, very balanced in his approach to both domestic and international affairs. And he had a great way with people who worked for him and just people in general. He was always right there with a kind act for people that worked for him and with him. And above all, I think he had a very clear idea of what the president could do and should do.